Welcome, Sports Lab Overtime. I'm Justin Baxley, joined by Rob Rousseau. Rob, we're in the Sumrall era. This all came together pretty rapidly starting Friday. Florida announced that they were pulling out of the Lane Kiffin sweepstakes. He is now headed to LSU. He will not be coaching in the playoffs. Ole Miss has already hired his permanent replacement, Pete Golding, the defensive coordinator there, as they prepare for the college football playoff, potentially. I guess technically the committee could drop them out now that they don't have their head coach anymore, but I don't think they will. That would be a terrible decision by the committee. An 11-1 team, regardless of that. Now, I can see you dropping them down maybe a spot or two because they don't have their head coach, but if you pull the Jordan Travis crap in a 12-team playoff, that's going to be rough. But as soon as they announced that the sweepstakes was over for Florida on Friday, quickly it emerged that it would be Jon Sumrall that they would be targeting. Now, remember, on Friday, it was reported that Auburn had pretty much locked in on Jon Sumrall and that the deal was more or less done. He just had to cross a few T's, dot a few I's, and he would be the next Auburn head football coach. The fan base was thrilled. They were loving their AD, ready to throw a party for the guy. And then Florida pivots, and immediately Jon Sumrall basically apparently told Auburn, yeah, I'm out on this. I no longer want to be the head coach at Auburn. I'm interested in either staying at Tulane or going to Florida. And at that point, Tulane offered him about $4 million. Florida offered him $3.5 million, basically double the salary with some incentives for the college football playoff. And will be the next head coach of the Florida Gators. Rob, I'm interested to hear your thoughts because we were kind of all tracking this in real time in our social group chat. We had spent the last month or so back channel sources, things like that. We had a pretty good feel on where things were headed. And I'll say, the source I had on the Kiffin stuff was really good because he also got the Summerall stuff very quickly too. And watching it play out the way it did, like I said, it felt very rapid that we were in the Lane Kiffin sweepstakes. We weren't. Summerall was the next head coach, and now it's shifted to focus of they've already hired a GM to come with him, Dave Caldwell from former Jaguars, but now he's with the Philadelphia Eagles. And then I think they'll come together pretty quickly on a staff in terms of offensive, defensive coordinator and things of that nature in the next few weeks, I would guess. It seems Florida is moving at light speed right now. What are your thoughts on how all this kind of went down and where you think the program is currently?
Well, first of all, let's get it out of the way. Any hire that was not Lane Kiffin would be treated in the way that Jon Sumrall is currently being treated by the fan base in terms of knee-jerk gut reaction. I think that's completely valid. I think any hire that wasn't Kiffin is an F, and Lane Kiffin was your A. If you had an opportunity to go for Lincoln Riley, that's an A-, and you'd be comfortable with that. Anything below that level is, I think, a failure on the part of the administration. That being said, Lane Kiffin is now signing his deal with LSU. It is what it is, and we must move forward. I cannot fault Jon Sumrall for accepting the position of Florida football head coach because it's a great position to have, and as he works his way up the coaching totem pole, this is a huge jump for him. This is a guy, 4 years of head coaching experience total, 2 at Troy, now finishing his 2nd at Tulane. Okay, right? And I think for me, the biggest gripe that I have is the level of inexperience, right? I have no doubt that Jon Sumrall can succeed here. I don't want to completely discount him yet. I haven't seen what he can do here. I haven't seen the staff that he is going to bring in. If that continues to develop as quickly as this situation has developed, I would assume we'll find out that stuff in maybe the coming weeks. But that's also probably the most important thing is if Jon Sumrall comes in and brings in good coordinators and just does his job as the head coach, doesn't really matter where you coached before as long as you can call the timeouts properly, which the previous guy could not do. So that's an important factor, but I cannot avoid looking just straight on into the optics of firing a group of 5 head coach from Louisiana because it didn't work. It didn't translate to the next level, and then doing the same thing again. That's the definition of insanity, is it not? I mean, that was really what was racking in my brain as I was saying, no, don't do this. Don't do this. I'm begging and pleading for the administration to bring in Jed Fish. I mean, that's the level that we were at after, for whatever reason, pulling out of the sweepstakes for Lane Kiffin, because, hey, we're not okay with giving Lane Kiffin an extra 20 hours to make his decision about where he wants to go. But Jon Sumrall, you take your time. We'll wait on you. We'll put all of our eggs in this basket. Tells me they've liked him for a long time. Think it validates the reporting from Zach Albaverdi earlier, maybe last week, about the meeting scheduled between Sumrall and the Gator administration. I thought when Sumrall was the one that came out and said, I'm not doing this meeting, that he was completely out of the search and his name wouldn't be brought back up. And now, about a week and a half later, he's getting announced the next head ball coach here at UF. So my tempers were hot this morning. I'm cooling a little bit because now, you can have those gut reactions, but now it's time to look forward. It's not changed. Basically took Billy Napier's contract, erased his name, and wrote on Sumrall's. The money's about equal. You're getting him at a discount. If he can outmatch how much you're paying him, if he can punch above his weight, hey, I mean, you can't for anything but the success of Gator football, and I would never do such a thing. So this is the guy. Let's move forward.
Yeah, about the similarities of he and Billy Napier. The other thing is he's had success very quickly at both spots, Troy and Tulane. But I went back and looked. So Billy Napier came into the Louisiana job.
Yeah.
From Mark Hudspeth. That team was 5-7, 6-7 the last 2 years of the Hudspeth era, 4-8 the year before that, so pretty bad. Billy Napier in year 1 went 7-7, which was an improvement of by 2 wins.
And
then he went 11-3,
yep.
10-1, 13-1.
Mm-hmm.
And then he left, and they immediately went down to 6-7. So the Billy Napier was a big deal at Louisiana.
Correct.
And they went from Willie Fritz, who was 2-10 in 2021, but then 12-2 in 2022, 11-3 in 2023, and then Jon Sumrall takes over, and they go 9-5, and then 10-2, and now they got a chance to play for a college football playoff. I'll give it to them. That's phenomenal. But Rob, I mean, to me, like he was kind of gift wrapped some success at Tulane.
Yes.
Tulane is not a poverty program. I think that Billy Napier's success at Louisiana, and maybe I'll catch flack for this, I think his success at Louisiana is a bigger deal. I thought he did a better job there than what Jon Sumrall has done at Tulane. Because I think Tulane was set up for success already. And so I know a lot of people are saying that he has engineered these rebuilds or turnarounds, but he really hasn't. I mean, this was a really good Tulane program. Willie Fritz is a heck of a coach. I used to cover him when he was at Georgia Southern. Willie's a great coach. Ton of fun to be around, ton of fun to cover, ton of fun to interview. He's a funny guy. Willie Fritz was a good team builder. He built up Georgia Southern, then went to Tulane, had some down years, but he also had some really good years at Tulane, especially his last 2. And now he's, I believe, at Houston and doing a really good job at Houston. Is Jon Sumrall's success over at Tulane really just Willie Fritz's wake that he's left behind? I mean, is that maybe that's unfair to him? I'll take a look at the Troy side of things. Again, I guess that's maybe a little bit more apples to apples because it's Sun Belt. But Chip Lindsey left 5-6, 5-7. Yeah, so I mean, 11-2, and then 11-2 and 11-3 at Troy, and then as soon as he leaves, they go 4-8.
Yep.
So if you are doing the apples to apples comparison, yes, they are basically the exact same in terms of when they had the Sun Belt jobs together. But to give him so much credit for what he's done at Tulane feels almost disingenuous to what Willie Fritz built for that program. So I don't want to give him a ton of credit for, I mean, I know Scott put in his statement that it's a guy that has quickly had success at these two places. And the funny part was, I believe he mentioned Willie Fritz by name.
Yes, he did.
As one of the three coaches that have done the same thing. And so I just have a hard time, not giving Willie Fritz some credit for what Jon Sumrall has done at Tulane. Now, something Lauren McGill and I've discussed before was the passion that we wanted to see out of the next head coach. I do think Jon Sumrall at least will bring you that. I'm excited for that aspect of things. But it is hard to sit here and pretend that this is a home run hire for Florida. Now, a lot of other fan bases are saying, yeah, it's a home run hire. We wanted that guy too. Ole Miss wanted him. LSU wanted him if Lane didn't work out. Auburn absolutely wanted him. Every other place wanted this guy. But for Florida, it just doesn't feel like a home run hire because of Billy Napier. The Billy Napier experience kind of maybe dampen some of the mood around that. But I just have such a hard time with this one because in any other scenario, I think you could spin Jon Sumrall as a great hire for any other program. I don't know how you do it for Florida because, one, there was so much confidence from all the insiders that, I mean, Zach Albuquerque the night before, and look, I think Zach has done a really good job of covering this.
Me too.
He was the only one that was right on Sumrall. He was the only one that stuck to his guns on that. And he even said that if Kiffin falls apart, they're going to go back to Jon Sumrall. Jon was not dead for this job. Everybody else wrote Jon Sumrall off, including you and I, because he said he was done. Like, he told us he was done with Florida. But Zach Albuquerque kept saying, if it falls apart with Lane Kiffin, Jon Sumrall is the name to watch. He was spot on. However, Zach and every other person up until Friday morning, even at midnight the night before on Thursday, said if I had to pick right now, Lane Kiffin picks the University of Florida. Everybody, a lot of reputations were staked on this. That whole Twitter
I agree with them.
It was going to be Lane Kiffin. Matt Berry, the morning of, ESPN personality Matt Berry put out bold predictions or whatever for college football for the weekend, and he said it was always Florida, which tells me that everybody had been hearing the same things that we heard, was that Lane Kiffin wanted to be at Florida. Now, there's rumors about MOUs and all this other stuff. I don't know. I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's true. There's way too much potential pitfalls there, so I'm not going to report on any of that. But what I will say is that everything we were hearing was that Lane Kiffin was a very, very real possibility for the University of Florida. And they did not wait the 24 to 36 hours, because Lane drug it out a little bit further, to find out. And on one hand, if he was always going to pick LSU, then Florida made one hell of a pivot. They did a really good job because Jon Sumrall would be the head coach of the Auburn Tigers today if they had waited any longer. 100%. But I believe I posed this question to you the other night when we were all talking. There's actually two things I want to hit on. One, Eli Drinkwitz early on, the reporting was that they had pulled his name out of the hat because they were worried about fan reaction. That they thought that his name would cause too much problems in that realm. But the question I think I posed to you was the drop off from Jon Sumrall to X, whoever that is it that big of a drop off that you're not willing to wait it out for 48 hours, with missing on Jon Sumrall, hiring a Will Stein or even a Jed Fish or Glenn Schumann at Georgia? There are plenty of hot up-and-coming coordinators. You may not love them as much as you love Jon Sumrall, But could you have stomached that more than sitting here wondering, did they just blow up spot with Lane Kiffin for no reason? Could Lane have still chosen them? And look, I'm not in those meetings. I don't know what Lane's erratic behavior was. Clearly, he's shown some of that in the wake of all this. So maybe they had a really good reason to move on from him. But man, it feels like they may have blown up the spot. And like I said, from my opinion, is the drop off, and that's the question I want to pose to you now because I posed it to you the other day, is the drop off from Jon Sumrall to, let's say, a Will Stein that much of a difference that you feel the need to blow up the Lane Kiffin sweepstakes for yourself?
Florida lost a game of chicken with LSU. It's really that simple. I mean, if he's choosing LSU now, that tells me Ole Miss was never in the equation. It tells me Ole Miss was never in the equation. He always planned on leaving, and Florida was in that mix. Now, again, you said, I don't know what's true and what's not, and this, that, and the third. Good programs, great programs will draw their line, and they will wait. LSU waited. LSU could have got scared and pivoted and threw $8 million at Jon Sumrall and got their next head coach. But LSU wanted Lane Kiffin. LSU wanted what Scott Strickland defined as an elite head coach. They wanted that. And so they waited. And they got him. That's what good teams do. They wait because they understand the value of their program. And you're hearing this beaming confidence from Florida's side. You're not hearing any news, but you're feeling the confidence growing over the course of the week, even on Thanksgiving, going into late Thursday night. You're feeling really, really good if you're a Gator fan about the prospect of Lane Kiffin being the next head coach. And then all of a sudden, a supposed deadline gets drawn for before the Egg Bowl, that if Lane Kiffin doesn't sign with the Gators before that point, they're pulling the contract off of his table as he's considering signing it. He's sitting there with the pen in his hand. They're pulling the contract away from him, not even letting him tell them no. They're telling themselves no. They're doing it to themselves. I think that's ridiculous, and it's unfortunate. And as you mentioned, the drop-off between someone like Jon Sumrall and then hiring, because it's not a flashy hire. It's not an exciting hire. You know, again, can it work out? Sure. Am I scarred from Billy Napier? And so that really, really draws some questions in my mind. Yes, 100%. Would I have preferred someone like Will Stein over someone like Jon Sumrall? Yes. Was Jedd Fisch going to be there tomorrow anyways for Florida to call and he would get on a plane and fly here on Monday? Yes. All of those things are true. And so I believe you should have waited. I think there's really no other way to put it. You have him in your hands. And to me, just like him picking LSU kind of tells me that he's never staying at Ole Miss. Florida pivoting at the last second kind of tells me they really didn't want him in the first place. I think they were doing it to make people happy. I think they wanted their name to be out there in the national media. I think that they wanted to be in on the top coach. And I think they did not want him to tell them no, to protect their own brand, to protect the identity, the value of the Gatorhead. Because if Lane chooses LSU over you, that knocks you down on the totem pole. That shows you where you belong. And I don't think they wanted to feel that. I don't think they wanted the rejection. So they just stepped away from the table. They folded. And it's frustrating. And my goal now for this week, and I guess the rest of the year, is to not let that frustration towards how this was handled bleed into my opinions on Jon Sumrall. Now, again, you mentioned he got a real nice car handed to him from Willie Fritz. I think that's accurate. But again, I can't. It's done now, right? I mean, I can't root for the guy to fail. No. So I have to say, okay, You got handed the keys to a nice car and you didn't crash it. It's better than nothing, right? And a lot of those good players with him last year. The good players that were on Tulane went to Houston with Willie Fritz.
Yeah,
joined
I'll give you that.
So there's part of that roster that was still there, and he was able to fix it up this year, and now they're back up and running. Slight hiccup, and they still only end up at.
I mean, they lost Mekhi Hughes. They lost Darian Mensah.
Yeah.
They were still really good.
Really good.
But you mentioned the Florida didn't want to be told no. I think you might be spot on with that. It's almost like you're getting ready for prom, and you're about to ask the head cheerleader to prom, and then your mom convinces you to just take your cousin instead. That's kind of what this feels like. Is you didn't want the head cheerleader to tell you that you were nervous and scared, and you didn't want to be told no in front of the whole school, and you were scared she was going to go with the star quarterback instead. But now she's ending up with the star quarterback anyway, and now are you that much better off than if you just waited an extra day? And maybe he chooses you. Maybe Lane does choose you.
I think he would have, for what it's worth.
I don't know. I mean, there was a lot of confidence, and then the confidence went away very quickly. I don't know if the confidence went away quickly because they decided that it was done, or if they had gotten intel that they were nervous about. And apparently there was some reporting this morning done by Albuquerque that said that Lane would talk a lot one day and then he'd go silent the next. But you've got to realize he's preparing for the Egg Bowl. Maybe that's just how that works.
And that's just the type of person he is.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be. You mentioned that the LSU kind of stood in the paint and were willing to miss on Jon Sumrall, who was their number 2, because they wanted to land Lane Kiffin. And they knew if they whiffed on Lane Kiffin, they weren't getting Jon Sumrall, and they were just going to have to be okay hiring whoever to take that role. But their fans would not have to worry or wonder, man, could we have had him? Now, I think it's different if you you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Rob. If you told me that your options are wait on Lane Kiffin for 24 hours to say yes or no, or Lincoln Riley has told you you've got 24 hours to make up your mind as an organization, I'll come be your head coach, then you absolutely punt on Lane Kiffin and take the sure thing in Lincoln Riley.
Absolutely.
Even if you think Lane Kiffin is better than Lincoln Riley, I would take Lincoln Riley in a heartbeat.
No doubt. Because
of the guaranteed of it. Jon Sumrall doesn't do that for me.
No.
He just doesn't. I think he's going to be a fine coach here. I think he's a great football guy. I think he will instill a sense of toughness into this program that has been missing. I think there will be some passion behind it. But I can't necessarily sit here and pretend that this is not a flashy hire. I think that if you end up with Will Stein, end up with whoever, Glenn Schumann, if you end up with a Bob Chesney or somebody like that is maybe a step down from Jon Sumrall. I do think there are guys out there that existed that were a step down from Jon Sumrall. I don't know about Jedd Fisch, though. I don't know that that's a step down. Jedd Fisch has got ties to the University of Florida. And here's something that I've thrown out there a few times now. Outside of Nick Saban, can you name the last head coach that won a national championship that didn't have some direct ties to the school before he took the job?
I don't know.
No. It's Urban Meyer. Before that, do you know what it was? I couldn't tell you because you have to go back way so far. So the fact of the matter is hiring a guy that cares about the school matters. I think Jedd Fisch was a heck of a second option. Now, are there pitfalls to hiring Jedd Fisch? Sure. Maybe he's not the same. He doesn't have the same demeanor as Jon Sumrall. Maybe that's what you were looking for. But I just can't get behind the idea that Jedd Fisch was such a horrible hire compared to Jon Sumrall that you had to punt on Lane Kiffin. I think you stand in the paint, make Lane Kiffin tell you no. When he tells you no, then you walk over to whoever's left and you accept them as your coach on a 3 to 4 year deal and you're fine. I don't think anybody's upset with you. I think the fan base is upset and now feels apathetic because you refused to stand in the paint.
Yeah.
You refuse to let him tell you no. You refuse to be rejected. The fear of rejection got to you. And I think that's the part that hurts this fan base. And quite frankly, if you're a booster or a donor of the program, the money that you scrounged up and put forward for Lane Kiffin to make it one of the most competitive offer, if not the most competitive offer on the table, tells you how much this fan base cares about this program.
Oh, yeah.
And I think you owe it to them, that there is some level of service to them to stand in the paint and find out if he's going to reject you or not. For them, not for you as Scott Strickland, not for the Gatorhead, but for the fan base, the boosters, and the people that pour their time, effort, money into this program in order to avoid them becoming apathetic. Because here's the cold, hard, unfortunate truth. Jon Sumrall won't have the resources that Lane Kiffin would have had here at the University of Florida, because there will be people who look at this and go, I'm good, I need him to show me something before I'm willing to give money again. There will be people who pull their season tickets, who decide they don't want to give money to the program because they are not inspired by this hire. If it was Lincoln Riley, I think you could get behind it. I think you spin Jed Fish as that he's a Florida guy. I think there's some
Agreed.
There's some genuine arguments to be made for some of these people. I don't know how you spin this one.
No. I really don't what you do. I thought Jed Fish would have been a pretty solid hire. I mean, he had a lot of fun at Arizona. He turned them into a good program. You know, that's to talk about a program builder. He's a guy that does that.
With no NIL, right?
No NIL, nothing. And I just think, I mean, like, if you could look me in the eye and tell me, here's how the situation's going to go. You're going to wake up tomorrow and Florida has pulled out of the deal for Lane Kiffin. We is going to get him. Now they've got him. We have Jon Sumrall. Okay. Look me in the eye and tell me Jon Sumrall's Florida is going to win a national championship before Lane Kiffin's LSU. Until you can look me in the eye and tell me that and not be lying through your teeth, what are we arguing here? I mean, it's ridiculous to have not allowed Florida to be a part of it. Make that decision more difficult. Make him tell you no. And Fish would have been a good pivot option. And I mean, I like the guy. I mean, I think it's another fun hire. I think that is one that you could definitely spin. It's just,
I think Golish is still there if you want.
Right. I mean, that's not crazy either. And that's another guy that knows how to, I mean, he utilizes NIL pretty well too. I mean, he can get your money's worth there. I'm interested to see how the new general manager does and in churning out, I mean, I don't know how they are going to fund keeping this roster together, because this roster, as currently constructed, was built with Billy Napier's buyout money from 2024. The $20 million that they had on the table to fire Billy Napier after he got smoked at home for the second time in 3 weeks against A&M on a crappy rainy day. On that Sunday morning after, when the boosters had the money on the table to fire him, and Scott Strickland gave the vote of confidence, that money then went to the NIL fund. And that's how you get Dallas Wilson. That's how you retain DJ Lagway. That's how you retain Jaden Baugh. The list goes on and on. That's how you get a great freshman class, VB. I don't know. Without that money that was panic put on the table to try and release this program from the demon that was Billy Napier, I mean, this team was 4-8. I don't even want to know what it would have looked like without some of the talent that they had there this year. You know, I mean, you have to restructure kind of the mindset around NIL at this university. You have to keep the years here. You have to keep them happy. I've said it before and again. College football is no longer about recruiting. It's about retention. You have these guys here. Recruiting them is great. but if you can't keep them longer than a year, then it's completely useless. It just doesn't matter, right? And that's part of the reason that LSU and Florida are better than a job at Ole Miss, because you're bringing in senior portal talent, because you're not able to recruit ground up in Mississippi like you can at LSU, like you can at Florida. And I don't know. It's just like the more I think about it, the more frustrated I get. I want the same amount, and I know you said it too. People are going to say I'm pulling my money. You know, I don't want to donate to this program when they basically spit in your face after you put money on the table to try and get the best coach available, and they pulled that money off the table. And they're basically handing it right back to you, now asking for it again. I mean, there is a reason that Lane Kiffin is worth $13.5 million and Jon Sumrall is worth $7.5 million. There is. Sorry, there is.
Yeah, I think you're right. I will say, there's that gap in the money, 7.5 versus we had heard 14.6. You have to hope now that there is some of that money left over to build an elite staff around Jon Sumrall. 247, Zach Goodall dropped an article a few hours ago. It's the hot board number 1 for the coordinators. The 2 names that he has listed for offensive coordinator is Joe Craddock, the Tulane offensive coordinator. Nationally, Tulane ranks 64th in points, 40th in yards, 48th in passing, 61st in rushing out of 136 FBS teams. They rank 8th in the AAC with 28 points a game, 7th in total yards with 416, 248 passing yards per game, 167 rushing yards per game. All those are pretty meh to me, especially coming off of last year with Darian Mensah and Mekhi Hughes, where they ranked 2nd with 35 points a game, 6th with 405 yards, 11th in passing with 209, and then 3rd in rushing with 195. The next one's Cade Bell.
Okay.
Cade Bell, they rank they're at the top of the ACC in points per game at 35 per game. 9th in total yards with about 400. 5th in passing yards with 275. Number 13 on the ground at 117. So not quite as good on the ground, but he probably also doesn't have Jaden Ball.
No. No, he does not.
But 35 points per game is 18th best in the country versus 64th, and honestly in a harder conference, to argue. And then before that, he was his first season in that role. They ranked 6th in points with 33 points a game and 7th in yards with 408, which is still really solid. He also spent 3 seasons under his father at Western Carolina before that. And look, he's from Gainesville, son of Kerwin Bell, who was the quarterback here at the University of Florida at one time. He's 32 years old. He's quickly rising up the ranks. Will probably be a hot name on the head coaching board. I would 3 to 4 years, which I think if you can land him to be your offensive coordinator now, I think that makes a ton of sense to go get him. Then over on the defensive side of the ball, it's Greg Gasparato, the Tulane defensive coordinator. Now, they do rank 4th in points in the AAC, 22 points a game. Really solid defense. They went out and pitched a shutout the night before. They also ranked 2nd in the conference in sacks, number 3 in interceptions. Really good. They're in the top 50 basically in college football when it comes to pretty much every defensive stat, which is not bad. They're in the upper half. And they're number 1 against the run with only 120 yards per game, which is solid. Shyle Wood, the Texas Tech defensive coordinator, they've been one of the best in the country now. They are top 10 nationally, 11 points per game. They only give up, which is number 3 overall. They only give up about 250 yards a game. What I'll throw out there about Shyle Wood and Texas Tech, yes, the numbers are great. That team spent so much money, Rob. And so I don't know how much of that is Shyle Wood and how much of that is Texas Tech's talent. But look, if you give him a similar level of talent here, maybe he does the same thing on defense. There are very few that you would argue that are 100% better than Ron Roberts as an upgrade. He feels like an upgrade. And then Blake Baker. That, to me, is the most exciting name on the list. I don't know that he's not going to end up as a head coach somewhere, though. Blake Baker ranks 4th in the SEC with only 18 points per game given up, which is really good.
Real good.
LSU ranks top 25 nationally in both points and total yards per game. It would be wise to pursue him, especially given experience in SEC. Zach Goodall also throws out there that he has previously coordinated at Missouri, Miami, and Louisiana Tech, so big game kind of guy. And look, I'll tell you, Blake Baker was the kind of guy that they badly want to keep around at LSU. But with Pete Golding sticking around, stay at Ole Miss.
Right.
Blake Baker may be a very easy hire for Lane Kiffin to say, yeah, I'd just rather keep Blake for at least another year. But if I'm Florida, I use basically every bit of money I saved on the Jon Sumrall hire. I find a way to make Blake Baker the number 1 paid coordinator in the country, and I bring him over as the DC, and then I make Cade Bell one of the higher paid coordinators in the country to come be your OC, and I run it with Jon Sumrall, Blake Baker, and Cade Bell. And then Bam Hardman, who's the linebacker coach, run game coordinator at Tulane. Again, I don't want to see him bring over his guys from Tulane.
None of them.
Look, I think there are going to be some, right, that you want him to have some trusted folks on the staff with him. I think there are probably 2 guys off of this staff here at Florida that I could recommend keeping. 1, Billy Gonzalez, and 2, look, I was out on this guy because he slapped the player at LSU, and 100% I think that he probably should have been fired, truthfully. But you didn't fire him. You suspended him. He served the suspension. You hope that he'll never do anything quite like that again. Jaden Ball come out yesterday and said he was the best running back coach in the country. Retain him. Find a way to retain him. Because for no other reason, if it means Jaden Ball sticks around, he's worth having on your team. I don't care what you do at every other coordinator position group. Make Jabbar Jalouk your running back coach today. And then find somewhere for Billy. I don't care if it's a quality control guy. Whatever it is, he's a lifeblood type. He bleeds orange and blue. He deserves a spot on this team for weathering the storm. Grabbing the win over FSU yesterday, I think, is enough to make me think that he deserves to stick around. I saw some people float letting him coach next year. Was not on that train, but I do think that he is worthy of a spot on this staff. Outside of that, I think you rebuild this thing from the ground up. You had a really great rant.
We got it.
Threw up here on the WRUF YouTube page. Make sure you go check that out because Rob is spot on. One of the best rants you'll hear about this Florida Gator football team is Rob's talking about gutting this program, gutting the coaching staff. I think 100% you do that, but I also don't think you bring Sunbelt guys with you because this fan base will react very poorly if you bring a bunch of Sunbelt and AAC guys with you because that's exactly what Billy Napier did. And because here's the – I think there was a tweet that went out. There's two potential schools of thought. Is one that he'll go and hire all the great staffers that we've talked about. The number 2 option is that he brings in these guys from Tulane, which paints him as delusional because that means you thought you had an SEC level staff at the AAC, and yet you were 9-2. I don't believe that you have an SEC level staff at Tulane, and so if you bring along all your Tulane guys, there will be a lot of people that are upset and not happy with the direction of the program.
And they'll be right. And they will be absolutely right, and I will be with them. Because right now, there is more control, and maybe this was also played into it a bit. The administration, I would say, has more control over Jon Sumrall than they ever would around Lane Kiffin. There was a lot of concessions that had to be made in order to make Lane Kiffin the next head coach, whether that's at LSU, Florida, or keeping him at Ole Miss. He basically would have to establish a dictatorship wherever he goes. You didn't have to give up those concessions for Jon Sumrall. Not at all. And if I'm sitting here and and I know the coach makes all these hires and things, but I would very, very strongly advise that he not bring over coordinators that are meaningful coordinators from Tulane to come coach in the SEC. I don't want to see it. I just don't. I want everyone gone. You mentioned Jabbar Jalouk. Honestly, I agree with you. I was out on him. I thought if Lane came here and he was redoing this staff, he wouldn't want someone like that on there because he's got enough controversy as it comes with it. It wouldn't make sense. But Jaden Baugh, and I felt this too when they had Jaden Baugh up after the Mississippi State game, I believe, and the first words that come out of his mouth are always about Jalouk. I mean, this was a guy that if that did not happen, if he did not hit a player on LSU, he would be the interim head coach right now, probably. I mean, that was the assumption before that news broke, and he had to serve that suspension. Now, again, I think Billy G did a pretty solid job as, just weathering the storm. Of course, 1-4 record, but he went up against some pretty difficult teams through that stretch, and he played well against Georgia, did a good job against Ole Miss, and the play calls there. That's not. I mean, he's got coordinators that were supposed to be doing that, play callers that were supposed to be giving the correct calls, and players that should be able to go out there and execute when healthy. And a lot of that didn't happen. So regardless, Billy G, about it, think he could stay. Jalouk, I think, is probably the most important. I think that's a great point, and especially because you don't got Kewan Lacey coming in with you out the other side. So that's to keep Jaden Baugh here. I know it seems maybe a little bit crazy to keep a coordinator or keep a member of the staff because of one player. Not when it's Jaden Baugh. Not when you give him the ball 37 times and he runs for 7 yards a carry every single time. I mean, it is unreal how good that kid is. You got to keep him. On the OC side of things, Cade Bell, I mean, you mentioned that's a great option. Right now, I looked it up before we got on. Will Stein we mentioned him a couple times, offensive coordinator at Oregon. He makes $1.75 million. I believe he just got a contract re-up there until 2028. Hey, you're paying Jon Sumrall $7.5. You had 14 on the table for Lane a year. If you're not getting up to at least 12 total in terms of head coach, OC, DC, and most of the staff, if you're not hitting 12 to 13 mil to get the best coordinators you possibly can, because again, it's easier to win where he is right now than it's going to be in the SEC. So bringing one staff over, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. Billy Napier laid out the blueprint of everything not to do. Here is how not to win as a G5 coach coming into a big-time role. You don't bring your buddies with you because they're going to go out the door with you on your way out in 3 or 4 years. Does not make sense. You mentioned Baker. I think that's a great option. An elite defensive coordinator would elevate this program. I think Ron Roberts has done a pretty solid job with what he's been given. This defense has been battered and destroyed with injuries. I know some people don't like that the zones are so soft, and sometimes you're giving up too much underneath. But it's difficult when your 3 best corners are out. What are you supposed to do? I mean, it's so. I give him a little bit of leeway. If someone stays and you want to keep him on the staff, I wouldn't hate it, but I would prefer someone like Baker. But offensive coordinator, if you're going to hire a coach who is smart enough, and I've said this about Billy Napier, he was not smart enough to delegate game day roles to other people because he believed that he could do it all himself, and he could not. He could not do it offensively. If Jon Sumrall is a guy who knows his limits, knows what he is capable of, knows that he needs an elite staff to make a program elite, which Billy Napier did not care to consider, then he will hire an elite offensive coordinator and get this offense humming. Because if it's not, this team has nothing to root for. I mean, this fan base has nothing to root for. I don't want to cheer on a good defense. Of course, it's nice when your team has a good defense, but and when you can come up with a big stop in a big moment, you want to love that your defensive line is getting to the quarterback and your corners are shutting down top receivers. But an offense puts butts in seats. Let's call a spade a spade. If Bell is going to be the guy to come in here, coach up DJ Lagway with a new quarterback coach too, because that position is going to be wide open as well, then I'm about it. If DJ is going to be here, whoever the next quarterback is, if it's not Lagway, but I do think he's going to stay because it's not like his stock is very high regardless.
I think it's smart for him to stay.
I think it's smart for him to stay too. He's got the money here. He's stable here.
I think.
And without Lane coming, right? I mean, Austin Simmons or Trinidad Chambliss, if they granted him an extra year, would have been challenging you for his job. Jake Retzlaff isn't challenging for your damn job. He's not bringing anybody with him that's going to challenge for your job. So it's not an issue, right?
I mean, I do think look, there are going to be portal quarterbacks that will be available. Guys like Deuce Knight potentially. But my question to you, Rob, would be: Is Deuce Knight really that big of an upgrade, or would you?
I don't know.
Let me back that out. He may be an upgrade, but would you want to spend your NIL money on trying to upgrade quarterback, or would you rather spend your money on upgrading the defense, upgrading the offensive line? Because good Lord, if the offensive line was just better, I think that we'd all be feeling, So me personally, if I were to put the hat on, the Jon Sumrall hat today, I would be looking to build the trenches up for this team, and I would roll with DJ Lagway and hope that he turns into the 5-star quarterback you think him be.
Yeah, I believe that he can be. I am vocally on the Lagway train, right? I believe that he can. That something good is in there somewhere, but he needs to get it coached out. He needs a full offseason. I pray that if he needs shoulder surgery or if he needs some fixer-upping, then he can do it now, starting today. That needs to be done so that he is ready for spring. He needs to be ready for spring, or else the QB competition is wide open. I hope Tramel Jones stays and keeps that seat hot for DJ, and I hope that the next coordinator and Sumrall as the next head coach will be smart enough not to keep their floundering quarterback out there when he's floundering, when he's throwing 5 picks in Death Valley. Right? I hope that that's also a change you see there, but I hope we don't get to that point either. Right? I hope DJ never throws 5 picks ever in a game ever again. So I don't even want to get there, but I do think right now the job is his, but it should not be a given. It should not be a given. I remember last offseason, I believe his name was Deshaun Purdy. He was a transfer quarterback from Charlotte who was going to come here, and he thought that the QB competition was going to be open, and it was not. And then he did not come here. Now, Tramel Jones is better than Deshaun Purdy. I am also very vocally supportive of Tramel Jones. I think that he should have gotten way more time this year. He preserved his red shirt. DJ finished out the year. But going into the spring, I'm behind DJ. But if Tramel beats him for that job, we're rolling with TJ 17 all day, right? And I hope that this staff is also smart enough to establish that as well.
Yeah, I think it's they have a lot of potential, and I hate to do that. I hate to even have to say that again, because it feels like this is just such a hard reset. I think you brought this point up on Sports Lab a couple months ago, was that hiring Lane Kiffin means that you could Frankenstein something together and potentially go win a national championship next year, or at least compete for one. I don't know that this is not a hard reset to step one of building a program back to that. I just don't see Jon Sumrall competing for a national championship in year one. I don't know that Jon Sumrall competes for a national championship in year two. Potentially not in year 3. This may be another 4-year rebuild that you have to hope that this guy gets it all right. But I do think that the schedule's easier next year. And more importantly, I do think, Rob, that if he can go out and win 8 games next year or 7 games, I mean, looking at the schedule, I think 7 or 8 games is possible.
It's very doable.
If he could win 8 games, I think you could get some people back on board. Then you could get the NIL donations back up, or whatever it may be, that if there's any lost money on this thing, you get the money back, and all of a sudden, maybe year 2, you win 9 games because the schedule again is easier. And then that third year, you shoot for a playoff spot. Maybe you end up with another 9-win season, and I think Florida's okay with 3 straight 8, 9, 9-win seasons. I think after Billy Napier, you accept that.
The bar is low.
The bar's low. So I do think he's got an opportunity there with the easier schedule. But by year 4, you better have had have a roster in place that you think can go win it. Here's the other problem, however, Rob, is after year 3 of 8, 9, 9, if that happens, your coordinators are getting plucked.
Mm-hmm.
So you better have a contingency ready to have sustained success, that no matter who you insert, that you can continue that train. What Jon Sumrall can't have happen is for Cade Bell or someone like him, or Will Stein, who comes in, makes this a top 5 offense in year 1 in the conference, gets poached because to go coach at South Florida or North Texas, one of those type of schools. Obviously not them because they're open now, so it'll be a year from now or 2 years. But what you can't have happen is that to be the reason why, and then all of a sudden you're back to a 6-win team because you couldn't find another coordinator. You've got to build this thing from the ground up, build a culture that will be able to sustain. I mean, you look at what Kirby Smart's built at Georgia. They lost Dan Lanning, who I think a lot of people would tell you is a top 5 head coach in this country right now.
I would.
They lost Dan Lanning and are still competing for a championship every year. Todd Monken is the offensive coordinator for the Ravens right now. They lost him and won a national, or I think they may have won a national championship. I can't remember off the top of my head. But they've continued to compete with Mike Bobo back in under the helm. I mean, you start looking at this thing, Rob, and I mean, those are the kind of teams that, because the top teams, Alabama had the problem too. I mean, Nick Saban was the best at this. Kirby Smart left 1 year. He had another guy ready to go. They fired Lane Kiffin, and he had Steve Sarkisian in waiting. When you lose the kind of guys that places like Alabama and Georgia lose routinely, and to be able to sustain that success is unheard of, Florida's got to get to that point. That's why these coordinator hires, to me, may be more important than the hiring of Jon Sumrall, because, frankly, again, the drop-off from Jon Sumrall to insert name here does not feel like that big of a drop-off. But the drop-off from a Cade Bell to Tulane Tommy or whoever you're going to bring over feels like a massive, massive drop-off.
Oh, yeah.
When you've got a guy that has the number 1 offense in the ACC versus the number 9 offense in the AAC, I'm sorry. To me, that is the number 1 thing about this entire process. Once you missed on Lane Kiffin, it became I don't care who the figurehead is, get the best coordinators you possibly can. If that means overpaying for Blake Baker, you do it. I don't care if you have to pay him like he's a group of 5 head coach.
Yeah.
You do what you have to do. Tulane offered Jon Sumrall $4 million to stay. Offer Blake Baker the same amount or more to come be your defensive coordinator. Make it 4.5. Make it hard for him to tell you no. Make him, because I'm sure he wants to be a head coach at some point. Make him come be the defensive coordinator here and get paid the amount of a head coach.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can't pay him more than $7.5 million, but you can pay him 4.5. You can pay him 4. If that's what you've got to do is to pay 2 coordinators basically the same amount as what you're paying for your head coach, do it, because you have to get this right. This fan base will not go through another rebuild and accept another coach in 2030 or 2029, or God forbid something happens where it's a 1 or 2 year Brian Harsin-like run for this program. Because I'm going to tell you, what's going to happen is you're going to get to the point like Auburn is, where they're celebrating and excited for a guy like Jon Sumrall. Florida doesn't accept Jon Sumrall as their number 1 option because this fan base believes they're better than that. They believe they're Lincoln Riley or Lane Kiffin worthy. don't let this fan base get to the point where they think they're Jon Sumrall worthy. Now, maybe Jon Sumrall comes in and does a bang-up job, and he proves them wrong, and he is the next Lane Kiffin or the next Lincoln Riley. Sure. But don't let them get to a point of being so apathetic that they're celebrating when they're getting the best G5 coach. Make them excited for this guy. Make this the right hire. But the only way to do that is get the right coordinators.
That's it. He's a moldable guy, right? I think that's really the big thing. Is like you can shape his image now, because nobody really knows much about him. I mean, if he says he wants to make it a mandatory necessity that Florida has a high-flying, explosive offense, that's his first statement as head coach that he told to Pete Nicholas for On 3. Great, right now go do it. Okay, now make it happen, because I can't fall for another scared money don't make money. I can't do it, and I won't. So until Cade Bell is hired, I'm not impressed by the hire of the head coach, because as you said, these coordinators will be more important than him until he proves that he has value as a head coach at the SEC level, at the Power 4 level even. Not even just in the SEC, just as a Power 4. Fourth year coaching. I mean, to have all these programs looking at you and all these big-time programs, got to be doing something right. I appreciate the energy. I do think he has a very solid defensive mind, and I also think he could learn. And he's a pretty young guy, too, in terms of the head coaching situation. You bring in someone like Baker, I mean, he's going to learn from him. He will improve himself by being around other talent. And if you bring in Cade Bell, and Cade Bell goes somewhere else at some point to be a head coach, he knows what he's looking for in his next coordinator. He knows how a high-flying, 35-point-per-game offense is supposed to be run. And then you can try and replicate that, and that's how the pipeline and that's how the tree starts to grow. That's how Nick Saban was able to figure it out. You have to know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So if you can, and he doesn't, to be frank, he doesn't know what he's looking for yet. So if he can just go to the hot board, because sometimes you got to use Occam's razor, and sometimes the obvious choice is the correct choice. That's why it felt very easy to pick Lane Kiffin as the next head coach, because sometimes the obvious choice is the correct choice, and that's okay. It just is. Sometimes the single on the album really is the best song on the album, and there's no deep cut that's better than it. That's just the way it goes sometimes, right? You whiffed on the head coach, you whiffed on the number one single, and you took a deep cut. Okay, now flip that. Coordinators both need to be the number one hits, because I'm not using an outside agency. I'm not trying. Pittsburgh can put up 35 points a game, and they run a spread offense, and they get everyone involved, and they use their receivers effectively, and they have fun quarterback play with quarterbacks who aren't superb, right? They weren't the prospect that DJ Lagway was coming out of high school, because he wouldn't have went to Pitt in any universe. Get someone who can mold this into something special, and it can be something special sooner rather than later. Again, I said it at the beginning of this conversation. If Jon Sumrall can go out there and call his timeouts right and be situationally aware and not send 12 guys on the field, or hire someone that sends 12 guys out onto the field 5 times a game like Billy Napier, then he's already over the mark. And you mentioned next year's schedule. It's easy. I'm not going to say it's easy. It's an SEC schedule, but compared to this year, it's cake. And you know what? He needs to succeed next year, because then in the 2027 season, all in 1 year, this is how it was scheduled: Alabama, A&M, LSU, Georgia, Tennessee, all in a year. First time you've been playing Bama in the schedule in a long time. Mm-hmm. This is what you're dealing with 2 years from now. So if this machine isn't ready to go by the time you get to year 2, then you're in a situation just like Billy Napier was, Because Billy Napier, he was not a good coach, and he was stuck in his ways, but he did not benefit from playing the hardest schedule in college football 2 years in a row. Both things are true. Both things are true. If you can get the snowball moving, though, and say, okay, this is a program that I want to commit myself to as a recruit, and you can kind of get that machine going and start building ground up again, bringing in good recruits from the portal, really using NIL and getting NIL support from a solid 8-win season your first year out, then you can actually field a team in 27 that's got 5 really, really difficult games, and they have a chance to go out there and win, and Billy Napier never really did in those.
Yeah. Look, I think the schedule next year, if you gave Billy Napier that schedule this year, they win 7 games.
I think so, too.
Maybe 8.
Maybe.
Which means next year, you better win 7 or 8, because, I mean, that to me is your standard next year. It's not improving from 4 and 8 to 6 and 6. 7 and 5 will honestly feel like an abject failure to some degree. 8 and 4 to me against that schedule is probably your floor, is what I would want. If I'm a Florida fan, it's 8 and 4. I think you want to go out and win every game, but I think 8 and 4 is, you would qualify that as a good start to something. And look, at the end of the day, we go back to the coordinator stuff. The reason that Kirby Smart continues to stack good coordinators is because his coordinators keep getting the best jobs in the country.
Yeah.
The reason that Nick Saban continued to stack the best coordinators in the country was because Kirby Smart was going to get the Georgia job. Steve Sarkisian was going to get the Texas job. Lane Kiffin went to FAU, but then he quickly made his way back up to Ole Miss. And if it hadn't been for his own failures that previously, Lane Kiffin would have been at Ole Miss sooner, or at a Florida sooner.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of programs that those coordinators end up in. Florida has to prove that it can be a breeding ground for top coordinator talent, so that if Jon Sumrall wants to stick around and wants to be the guy here that builds a program, he's got to start out with 2 exceptional coordinators that within 3 years, both of them are being hired for not, honestly, I don't even know if group of 5 jobs is right. He needs to hire 2 guys that in 3 years are the number 1 candidates for Penn State, USC, places like that. Truthfully.
Agreed.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with expecting that or wanting that. But it starts by making the right hires today. He cannot sit here. Because I'm going to tell you, these press releases that they've put out, fans pick over that stuff. They've picked over Scott's words of elite head coach. They're not happy with who they got because the expectations were set. Jon Sumrall set an expectation today that he was going to have a mandatory offense that was good, and he was going to build a great staff. If he brings the Tulane guys, that he's failed that immediately.
Agreed.
He's failed the number 1 test to start this whole thing out. If he goes out and gets, I don't even want to say Cade Bell, because I think it's just, you have to get a coordinator that you can look at on paper and say, yep, that's a guy. That's a dude. I want to be able to look at the tape and go, that's different than Billy. Because I'm going to tell you, watching that Tulane game last night, brother, I don't know that there was any difference in watching that in a Louisiana game 5 years ago.
Nope.
6 years ago, whatever it was. I don't know that there was really that big of a difference. I physically could not watch that offense operate.
I was repulsed.
Like, I saw there's a meme going around or a video going around that says, stop watching when he runs an orbit motion.
Yeah.
And it's every play. Nobody wants that. We're not looking for that.
Not again.
Billy Napier did that. My buddy, every time we watched the game, would go, well, here comes Trey in motion. About that time, Trey would go in motion every time.
Trey in motion, pistol formation, shotgun. Like, it's just tiring. You had this year, I mean, the bar right now for an offensive coordinator for this team is to not have your stone hands tight end be the number 2, the second leader in receptions on the team. That's the bar. When you have an elite transfer talent, senior transfer talent, and J. Michael Sturdivant.
What a waste.
What a waste. I feel heavily for him. Like, I really do feel it deep in my heart.
Yeah, there's a lot of playoff teams that would love to have J. Michael Sturdivant on it right now.
Absolutely. And I'm so sick that he wasted this year here. Regardless, Sturdivant, you have the best freshman duo in America. I know Dallas got hurt, but best freshman duo in America in Dallas and VB3. Aiden Mizell, one of the fastest players in the SEC, in the country probably, lightning speed, great kid on top of that, and always doing the right thing on the football field. Because on top of the fact that nobody's ever open because the offense does not scheme these dudes open, which is, furthering the point, Aiden Mizell has to break off his route half the time to come save DJ Lagway and give him something to throw to. And then you have, who am I missing? Trey Wilson, who is phenomenal. He's a really, really good player. You had 5 stud wide receivers, and you were running two tight end sets with the 6'6" or 6'7" tight end out wide. Not even like you're running a blocking set. You're keeping him to the inside of the formation. You're giving some extra help to the quarterback. You're putting him in the run game. You are running the tight end out wide.
He's not Kyle Pitts.
Not Kyle Pitts. He is an average tight end. He's a good blocker, average tight end. Caught a touchdown yesterday. Good for him, though. That's who you're running on the outside of the formation. Makes no sense. None. That's the bar now. That is the bar that has been set. So if you can get past that level, then we're already in motion. We're already in business. We're already rolling. But if you want to keep Dallas Wilson here, you have to show him the tape from Pittsburgh and say, this is what you're going to be in now. That's what we're going to make you do.
Yeah, or whoever. Look, if you told me they were getting...
Hey, you want to keep Dallas Wilson here, the offensive coordinator from Oregon would definitely do that because he was signed to go play for him a year ago.
Yeah.
He signed a national letter of intent to play for Will Stein's offense under Dan Lanning at Oregon. That's a pro-style offense that knocked down the door of the Big Ten, and in their first year there went 15-0 before they lost to Ohio State. That is what that offense is capable of. And they did that stuff. I mean, they were doing that stuff with Bo Nix, too. Like, Bo Nix wasn't great.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he was good at the college level. He's been like some psychotically good quarterback. He was a vet in a pro-style system that played to his strengths with good talent around him. Talent is there. The quarterback is unrefined. You have to refine him. But right now, a good coordinator will better your chances of keeping someone like Dallas Wilson here, who I'm terrified for him to leave. The biggest gripe for me with this hire is not that we're hiring Jon Sumrall and not Lane Kiffin. It's that we're going to get our pantry raided. It's going to get ugly fast if you don't hire the right people immediately. You could hope and pray. Vernell Brown, he's a legacy. Miles Graham, he's a legacy. You could hope you keep those guys there. You could pray that if you keep Jabbar Jalouk, then Jaden Ball will stay because he knows he's got to succeed at the next level anyways. So maybe it doesn't matter where he is. If you want to keep this team rolling with the talent that they have right now, which can compete for a national championship, Dan Lanning has this team. Lane Kiffin has this team. They're definitely better than 4-8. Significantly better than 4-8. You do that. You keep these guys here. It's about the retention. It's about it is not just recruiting, it is about retention. I am scared that this will scare people away. And I do not want these kids to be scared away. So the hire there needs to come before the portal opens. Because you need to sell them on an idea. You sold J. Michael Sturdivant on an idea of DJ Lagway, of what he could be here. Now you need to sell this crop of kids. You need to sell transfers that maybe are interested in this program and playing for someone that's going to run an explosive offense on the idea of this program. This is all that's at stake here. We're sticking on this coordinator talk here. That is what's at stake. It's not just having a good offense. It's keeping the elite offensive talent that you got here. It's here. The pieces are here. I said that weeks ago. I still believe that. I still believe that this team, as currently constructed, when healthy, of course, because 20% of your scholarship players down is a difficult way to win, can win a national championship. I think their roster stacks up with some of the best. Maybe it's not the best, but I do think it really does stack up. I do. I don't think that's crazy.
They've got 5 days.
Yeah.
Before the portal opens for this group for 50, because it'll open for 15 days in December, basically. At some point, I think probably December.
It's 5 days
5th.
after the coach is hired now.
Yeah, you get 5 days, and then it opens for 15 days, then it closes again, and then it'll open again in January. If nothing else, John's got to come in and say, look, give me the full. If you want to transfer in January, go for it. But let me have 20 days to get you a coordinator.
Well, he's coaching. He's coaching this week. That's
what's going to make it very hard. And so I think he better already have some guys lined up. And maybe that's where this general manager side comes in. Maybe he goes to the general manager and tells him, hey, these are the guys I want. Figure out a way to get them here, whatever. I don't know how all that's going to work. But you've got a very, very tight window to work in, especially knowing he's got a game on Friday to potentially put himself in the college football playoff. I think if you're a Florida fan, it goes one of two ways. You really want him to win that game because it gives you some hope that you've got a really good guy. But there's also the side of you that kind of hopes that they lose that game because so he can get to work as your head coach.
Agreed.
So maybe it's a lose-lose or win-win. It depends on how it all works out. What you don't want to see is them get boat raced by North Texas.
No.
Getting boat raced would be really bad for Florida. The fan base is going to be watching that, I think, pretty heavily, if I had to guess. My guess is they probably didn't watch a ton of the Charlotte game last night because they were really kind of holding out hope that Jon Sumrall wouldn't be their next head coach. Now he is. All eyes from that Florida fan base will be on that game Friday night. And it'll be right here on WRUF. We'll have it here. Kevin Winter is playing program director. That's one of his other roles. He said he's going to get you that Tulane game, so make sure you tune in for that. Rob, I've enjoyed kind of dissecting this, giving you some rapid fire stuff. We've got a few other videos that'll be going out as well. Luis and Alexis, Lauren and Manuel, and then me and Rob. And so it's a ton of content for you. Obviously, Steve and Kevin kind of came in and gave you the live breakdown, but we wanted to hop on, do some rapid reactions, look at some of the big key questions coming out of this day. We talked about the coordinators with Rob. We talked about some pros and cons of Jon Sumrall with Lauren and Manuel. We talked about Lane Kiffin, what that looked like, missed out on, where that's kind of going now, that whole debacle. There's about 7 or 8 guys, it looks like, that are going to leave Ole Miss to go with him. I don't know how that all plays out. It could get really nasty in Oxford. And you talk about a pantry getting raided. That place, they're not going to have anything left if Lane Kiffin has anything to say about it. And obviously we talked a little bit more about the just overall reaction. So we appreciate you joining us here on YouTube. We'll have more content coming your way. Tomorrow, 3:15, Jon Sumrall will be introduced in a press conference as the next Florida Gators head coach. Be sure to tune that. We'll carry that live here on WRUF. Thanks for joining us here on Sports Lab Overtime.